Hello again. So not gonna have really an intro or anything. Probably usually won't, but I guess we'll see. I'm going to address, I think, I don't know if it's the elephant in the room. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Yes, I do use my real name on my YouTube channel and honestly on the rest of social media. And I know that typically teachers will not do that or will use their middle name or whatever else it might be. And honestly, my personal opinion for me is that most of what I put out on social media is stuff that I would talk about with people in person in general. And I'm very open with my students, I'm very open with the other people in my life, and so really there's nothing that I would ever put out there that I wouldn't want other people to know, I guess. If there's something that's really super personal to me or that I don't want them to know, I usually wouldn't put it on social media anyway or be talking about it in public and really with only very close friends. That being said, I think it's important to have boundaries, and I mentioned in my last video, I think that I would probably be using the word balance a lot, and I think this is one of those things. Like, I'm definitely not going to be like friending any of my students on social media or anything like that. That's kind of a given, but I'm not really worried about what they would find by finding me on social media, and so I'm pretty comfortable with that. Other teachers have other opinions on that, and it's just kind of what boundaries you set for yourself and just making sure you have them, I guess. So I think this is kind of related to that actually, but I think today I wanted to talk about some like teacher stigmas, and I don't know if that's the right word, but we'll just go with it. One is kind of, I'm happy to see that it's not as big of a thing, but tattoos. I'm seeing more and more teachers with tattoos. I personally have 3 right now, and I plan on continuing to get tattoos. I really like that we've stopped, well, at least to some extent, stopped judging how well someone does a profession by the way they express themselves. And none of my tattoos are profane. I think for me they're inspirational. I like to think that they are things that I would like to teach my students about like life or other things, or show that those things mean a lot to me. And I think in some ways that makes me more human. Not that not having tattoos doesn't make you a human, but that's my personal opinion on it. So I'm really excited to see that changing in the world, and seeing more and more teachers with tattoos, and visible tattoos at that. I think that's a stigma that's going away, and I'm glad to see that. Another stigma, I guess, and maybe this is more of like how students perceive teachers, but often teachers don't, or students don't realize that teachers do know what students are talking about. And maybe it's just because I'm really young, and so some of the things that my students are interested in are things that I'm also interested in. And so when they make jokes or talk about things, like, I'm up to date on them. And I definitely have students that it kind of startles, or at least I did when I was teaching summer school. And so it's kind of funny for me as a teacher, but also interesting to just see how students feel about their teachers knowing current things. I've had students that think it's awesome. I've had students that think like, what, you're my teacher, you shouldn't know those things. And I think that's really fun. And I had a really interesting talk actually with another teacher the other day about how students will assume that, or maybe not assume, but not be as surprised if like I know something because of how young I am, but then they assume that like an older teacher, and not even like old, like just middle-aged or whatever, will they'll assume that they don't know those things, or like don't know the jokes, or don't know the innuendos, or whatever else it might be. So that's just kind of interesting. And for the students that have found the channel, or that will, or of any teacher really, like, I think it's something to be aware of, that your teachers probably know more of what's going on than what you think they do. I think another stigma, and I don't know if this is a stigma, but I guess I personally, with my teachers, didn't hear a lot of them talking about this a lot, and I know now, because I've stayed in contact with some of them, like, that they have had this, is talking about mental illness. And I am already pretty open about like my depression and anxiety and some of those kinds of things, and my students know that. I'm open with other people about that, but I don't really remember my teachers in high school really talking about that a whole lot. There was a little bit here and there, but not a whole lot. And some of those teachers that didn't talk about it are teachers that I know now do have some of those things. And I think that's interesting. And it's hard because, once again, the word balance, like, my job is not to have my students feel sorry for me or weigh them down with my problems, because they have a lot of problems going on in their life, and I'm there to help them grow and overcome and all of those things. But I do think being open and honest about those things, is also important in some ways. And if I can even help one student that has anxiety or depression or something else, because I've been open enough to talk about it, then I think that's worth it. My goal isn't to get sympathy or to be friends with my students or anything like that. I want to help them because I care about them. So, which I think is all us teachers really want in general. Let's see, what else? I keep looking down because I have a list in front of me of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I'm corny like that. One thing I was going to talk about that I really enjoy doing as a teacher, and I know this is kind of, I don't know if newer is the right word, because maybe it has been done for a long time and it's just been under a different name or something else, but I do this assignment that's like writer's notebooks, and so my students write 10 minutes in their writer's notebook every day, and then 10 minutes once a week outside of class. And this is not my idea. This I learned this at college. We read, let's see if I have it over on my bookshelf over here. I'm not seeing it right now, but there's a book called Notebook Know-How. I can't remember the name of the author right now. That has a whole book on how to implement writer's notebooks and things of that nature. And basically what it is a way to get students informally writing. And I think there's just so much formal writing that happens in an English classroom, like essays and mostly essays, but other things too. And while formal writing is important, and like students need to learn, like, okay, when do I need to use this kind of language? Maybe it's an email to a boss or whatever that might be later on. That there is also value in informal writing, and that they're doing informal writing regularly without even knowing it. Social media being one example is anytime you post on Facebook or Twitter or whatever else it might be, it's informal writing right there. And what's interesting is I did this during my student teaching also, and the kids complain about it. They do. They whine about it at first, about their hand hurting. They try and get out of it. They try and, go to the bathroom or whatever it might be during that time. And but after a while they get used to it. And I will say that the kids that I'm teaching right now have been more receptive to it than the kids that I taught during student teaching. And I'm interested to see where it goes. I actually was just reading a whole bunch of them. One thing that's really cool, I think is cool, is I guarantee my students that they will be 100% confidential and that I'm not going to share them with anybody except for in like the cases of mandatory reporting that we have to. And I think there's some rumors flying around that I haven't been confidential even though I have. So I think they'll figure that out and that'll be fine. But I really like that because I think it gives them an outlet. And I have students being really concerned about like, oh, well, what if I am ranting about you? Or like, what if I am, just being mean or whatever it might be. And like, I'll say that yes, there for sure have been moments where there's been disrespect towards me or another person or even another teacher, whatever it might be, in the notebooks. And, I'm sure everyone has different ideas of what should happen in that circumstance. And honestly, I'm regularly doing my best to try and remember that, like, this is their notebook. This is something that they can turn to and rant in or whatever it might be. And I would hate to think that if a teacher saw me in a moment where I was really frustrated or that I was just trying to like express my emotions. Like, we all rant, and I would hate to think that someone is judging me based on my worst moment. And so I try to remember regularly that, like, they're kids, they're going through a lot, and the writer's notebook is a way for them to cope, even if they don't really like it or they don't think of it that way. I don't think that they are worse people because they have frustrations. And while they're learning and like being held accountable for actions is important, I did tell them that it was going to be confidential. So I keep it that way, and I think I've discovered that I personally, as a teacher, have been really good at each day being a new day. I wake up every day and I'm excited for the day, no matter how bad the day before was or how good the day before was. I'm excited, and I think that the kids deserve to be treated as if each day is a new day, even if they had a rough day the day before, or whatever that may be. Because, we all understand that. Another thing I really like about writer's notebooks is that I'm not grading how good their writing is. I get some insight into who they are as a person, and when I am reading them, either for feedback or to grade them, which I do once a quarter for the grading part, otherwise I collect periodically to give feedback on are they reflecting and putting in the effort to like explore, try different styles, writing the whole 10 minutes because we really put an emphasis on that. But when I'm reading them, it gives me an opportunity to put the pen down, and I try and do that more and more every time I grade something, because if I'm grading with the purpose of trying to find something wrong with their writing or with whatever that assignment is, I don't think I'm doing them justice in terms of looking for what they're doing right. So if I can just put the pen down and just enjoy what I'm reading and like enjoy seeing the workings of my students' minds, because they are brilliant no matter how much they discredit themselves or how terrible they think they're doing. They are, to quote Yoda, truly wonderful the mind of a child is. And I think that by being able to put the pen down and just really enjoy their work, I'm able to appreciate it more and honestly give better feedback, because it's only the things that after I've gone through it, pick the pen back up and think, okay, what feedback do I want to give? The things that are really the most important that I want to focus on for them, I remember better, like whatever that thing may be. And so then that's what I write down, and that's how I don't overwhelm them with too much feedback or mark up their paper for no reason and stuff like that. This video ended up actually being a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but I think it was good, and at least for me, maybe you think I was boring or something, but I enjoyed it, and I am excited to continue exploring different things to talk about and kind of give more insight on the world of teaching. So if you're watching, thanks for watching. Way more people watched the last one than I thought, so thank you, and have a good one.